Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Hello.
Hey,
I think Rob is not joining today, and maybe we can wait one more minute and then we
i-
can start.
is Simi normally coming to those meetings, or is it too early for her?
I think she doesn't join normally.
Okay,
No, yeah, Robert usually joins these calls, not Simi.
okay.
Okay, so do you want to start? I don't think anyone else is joining, and I don't think we have any particular agenda for today, so maybe it can be a free discussion and you can ask questions, whatever you want.
I I would like to add the point about Oktoberfest and good first issues to the meeting to bring it to the TSC to the SDK team, show you what we have prepared from the Hiero TSC side and so on, and maybe can even, if we have time and there are no other points or all other points are done, use the time in this meeting to refactor some issues to good first issues and so on.
Well,
Oh,
and I don't know if we're ready, but I'd like to propose that we discuss if we think it's ready, the Hiero hooks design doc. If we're not ready to present it, that's fine. But I think that would have been suggested before that in these meetings we cover some of the more recent design docs.
yeah, I think we can do that. The design doc is uh, pretty much done. There are one or two items on it left, and they're mainly um, some specifics for integration testing. So yeah, the overall design should pretty much done. I guess we can start with Henrik.
Oh, maybe we start with the other one.
Oh,
No?
I'm fine. Just give me 1 second to prepare the document. I'll share my screen. Mm, Okay. Can you see it?
Mhm.
All right. So, are you familiar with the heap for the Hiero hooks?
I am.
Yeah, so I won't go a lot into the details of how it actually works and stuff like that because it's quite complicated. I'll try to go over the new APIs that we will include in the SDKs. So overall, this heap allows the users um, to create these small smart contracts that can be executed before or after or both during a transaction. In this example, it's a transfer transaction, and the hook is for allowance. So basically, the user can set up a contract that approves an allowance before a transfer, or it's, for example, approves, then the transaction executes, and then removes the approval, maybe for NFTs or something, because we have approval for all for NFTs. So maybe that's another use case. So you approve all NFTs, and after the transaction succeeded, you remove the approval. So there are a lot of useful things that you can do with that. So we have quite a lot of new APIs in the SDK. And as a note, I've added that all of the new APIs need to have implemented getters and setters that return an instance of itself for method chaining, which is a common pattern in the SDKs. We also need from and to protobuf functions in order to support HIP 745, I believe it was, to be able to create transaction from and to bytes. First of all, we have enumeration, which is the hook extension point, which in this instance is only a count allowance hook. Then we have a hook type. This is used in the transfer transaction. So the user can specify if they want a pre-hook, pre-post hook, and the rest of these four are for NFTs. So these four specify either the sender or the receiver, because in transfer transaction, when we create transfer for NFT, we specify the sender and the receiver, whereas for normal transfer, we just only specify the account and the amount that we are subtracting or adding. So we don't need to specify sender or receiver for transferring of HBAR or normal fungible tokens. I will show how that's used a little bit later. We have hook creation details, which is used in account create, account update, contract create, and contract update transaction. So this class or this type basically specifies the what the hook should look like. Yep.
I have one question for those fields that now coming, like for all the other classes. From my point of view, it would be helpful to add the information about when they are valid. Like, could one of those be null, as an example? So, like the hook extension, let's take the hook creation detail. So the first one we see, where we have a field which is hook extension point.
Yeah.
Could that be null or not?
No. Um, if you go to Java, for example, in the implementation in Java, you can see it here clearly that we have account create transaction, and this has a list of hook creation details. Yep, and when we go to the hook creation details, we have hook extension point, which
Yeah.
is that.
Yeah.
Here we declare it as private final, and
Final, and then, yeah, I see it. But
yeah,
wouldn't it make, yeah, that makes totally sense. But on the other hand, the admin key can be nullable. And
yeah, the
it
admin key.
makes sense in the hub document. So like in that one to
Mhm.
mark it here. So because we now have this document and we have, I don't know, 7, 8, actually I don't know how much implementation like for all the SDKs. And so if I need to implement it, let's assume I have an SDK. Let's assume I have a .NET SDK as an example, or the Python SDK that is maintained by the community, and they want to implement that. I would say it makes sense
Yeah,
to
I get
add
the
the
point. Yeah.
nullable information here.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yep, I'll add that. All right. We have the extension point, which is that. We have an ID for the hook. We have this lambda EVM hook, which defines the contract that this hook is going to use, and we have the admin key that can be used to do updates of the hook. And yeah, this is the lambda EVM hook, which is, let's see, it's pretty simple type. It extends the EVM hook spec, which has the contract ID, and there are initial storage updates that basically, I'm not quite sure what the use case for that is, to be honest, but uh, these storage updates are basically key value pairs that would correspond to the contract state, and the key would be something like the slot in the contract, and the value would be, you know, the value that the contract has. So maybe you can do some custom some very custom logic that way, but I'm not quite sure how it would actually work. Yep.
If that is a key value pair, would it be allowed to have like two of them in the list that have the same slot? Because if it's a key value pair, I'm just thinking, why is it not a map?
Um, Actually, this type is
Yeah.
one of these two, which can be, here is the key value pair. And
Ah, okay.
so it's a list of a type that's key value pair, but it also can be that other one, which is one the mapping entry, which also has uh, a mapping slot. Yeah, it's kind of complicated. And actually, while reviewing that, I saw another thing that I should fix, and it is to do that from
Why is
I.
the Lambda mapping entry not extending the slot? I mean, if it could be one of the two,
Yeah, yeah, that one should be an abstract class
yeah,
that is either that one or that one.
yeah.
Yeah, I want that information as well.
Is it okay if we do like on that level discussion and comments here for everybody?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
This is amazing, Hendrik. Thank you for pulling out all this stuff.
Yeah, this is actually how we implemented it in Java, but I didn't have time to go back to the document. Yeah, so thank you for that comment. So we have the storage update, which is, we actually have a list of these storage updates, which can be either a simple key value, or we also have this mapping swapped, which I haven't really dived deep into what its purpose is, but I'll double check that. And we also have the VM hook spec, which contains the contract ID. When I first started creating these types, I thought that quite a lot of them can be grouped together and not have like 15 different types. But I guess it would be better to follow the structure in the protobufs and have a different type for every different protobuf message, so that we can be extensible in the future if they decide to add more stuff, for example, here. Because in theory, I can just remove that type and just pull the contract ID into the Lambda EVM hook. But later on, that EVM hook spec might have more stuff to it, so I guess it's better to have it mapped one-to-one with the implementation of the protobuf messages. That might be something that can be seen in that document. We also have hook-o and EVM hook-o, and these ones are directly passed to, actually the hook-o is directly passed to the transfer transaction as you are calling the hook. And yeah, the hook-o can have a hook ID, which is the same one that we created here. And we also have a hook EVM call, which specifies the data that we're passing to the contract. Because the hook is a contract, we can have data passed to it, and we also have gas limit. Okay, so that is pretty much the part for creating and calling hooks. The rest of the types are for this Lambda as a store transaction, which can directly change the key value pairs in the hook state. And yeah, it basically updates the hook. So this Lambda store transaction has a hook ID, which can be which is of that type of hook ID, which has the, yeah, maybe this naming is not the best, but this is how it's defined in the protobufs. The hook ID has the hook ID and also has the entity that is being called for, because I think one hook can, like the same hook can be implemented for different accounts or contracts. So we need to specify the entity that this hook is being created for, and yeah, it runs into its state. So this is a hook ID. And we also have these storage updates that I previously showed. So basically you can use these storage updates to update the hook, but you can also do these updates during the creation of the hook, maybe to do some, I'm not quite sure what the use case is for that, but you can create and update at the same time. And this transaction, I've specified that it has getters, setters, and also specified more clearly that we can have a add storage update because it's a list. We can add an item. We can set an item. We can set the whole list as a whole, and also clear a storage update when we pass the key to the Solidity, like the contract slot. If we call clear of that key, we will remove the storage update from the state. Basically, we will remove that slot in the contract. After that, we have new APIs for account create transaction, which is add hook. This is the hook creation details from earlier. We have set, which sets the whole list, and we have a get method. For the contract, we have the same thing. For account update, we can add, we can set, we can also delete. So we can add hooks and delete hooks at the same time via account update transaction. So when we delete the hook, we specify the ID. Yeah, Henry.
I have some comments on the API. So I just searched for it because for me it was totally unclear what lambda uppercase S store means. But why do we have this uppercase S in it? Like this 2 times S. Does somebody know what that stands for?
Yeah, I think that is the opcode, the Solidity opcode, Solidity like EVM opcodes. Or yeah,
Ah,
how it's called.
let's see. Yeah, that is the opcode of okay. Um, okay, understood.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. That
so if you
save
look,
something to the storage. Yeah, okay, that makes totally sense then. Um, the question is if we really want to call our transaction like that, because that is super deep knowledge, right? And having then a transaction that you use, or when is that transaction type used? For what do you use it?
um, yeah, so basically this transaction can modify the hook, which is a contract, so the contracts
Yeah, yeah,
stated correctly, which is, yeah, I agree with you, it's very complicated and
yeah.
probably less than 0.1% of the Hedera users will be able to execute this transaction successfully because it's very specific. And we talked with Michael Thinker about that, and he said that there are people in the Hedera community or the EVM/Hedera community that will specify only in doing that, like only in doing this hook, it would be a layer, uh, something like a layer that
Mhm.
or something that they provide as a service that actually does these things for the users. So he said that end users will not directly touch this transaction. They only will call the hook, and
Like call it and yeah. The
they will
like
only say, I want to execute this hook, which is, for example, if I am an end user, maybe you are this provider of hooks. Maybe you are very good at creating contracts and stuff like that, and you give me this service that can plug into my account. For example, you can um, create a very specific hook for me that does some um, complicated stuff, and you hook it to my account, and after that, I only just call it with the transactions that are able to call it. In this instance, is uh, the transfer transaction. But the way he explained it, that there will be people or companies that provide these hook like updates and very specific things as a already implemented service for the end users.
Mhm. The question is if the name is like the name of the transaction for an end user who use it is a good choice to have this Lambda S store transaction, or if it's like a Lambda storage update transaction would be I've seen it where it's coming from. Yeah, I Googled in that document. It's in the protobuf, it's named like that. Yeah. But I mean, only because the protobuf names it like that, don't mean that in the public API that we forward to our users, we need to name it exactly the same. So I'm
Yeah,
just thinking if this name makes sense, or if we should rethink if there might be a better name for the transaction.
yeah,
Do you,
I
do you
see the
understand
point.
what I mean? Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we can think about that.
Well,
Um,
I guess maybe the counter argument, Hendrik, would be that the people that are actually interfacing with this function will understand what SS store means.
Yes, I agree on that. On the other hand, what we have inside is the Lambda storage update, right? So we have a Lambda S store transaction that transfer Lambda storage update. So in the inner one, we have not used this complex, let's say like the complex name. We only have used it in the transaction type description. And that was more or less why I came to that, because one is named more easy to understand and the other one is named more complex. But I'm not saying that it need to be changed, right? It was just, I don't know where that name is coming from. That's why I asked. And now that I know it, I would say maybe we rethink if there could be a better one, but I'm not saying that this is totally wrong or something.
No, I think it's a good suggestion, Henrik. Sorry, I don't my request is, Hendrik, would you mind some of these outstanding comments? Would you mind leaving a comment in the thread for the design doc, just so we can make sure we capture these things?
Totally fine. Either that or like we did it just now that Ivan, because he knows the exact place, can do it. For me, both would be fine. I need to search because I'm just seeing it now on screen in the screen sharing. Me.
yeah, I think it would be good
Yeah,
to
I found it. Yeah, I
that
can do that. Yeah.
with Michael Tinker as well, because he's the one who proposed the heap. Maybe for me, something like hook update transaction or something like that would make total sense.
Yeah.
But maybe in some other use case of that transaction, maybe it doesn't. I'm not quite sure. So I will think with him about that as well. See what.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. So another thing I would like to discuss, and I can think we stay here. It's more or less the same for the things we come now. What we now have here is a list of this storage updates list, right? And the API now for sure we have getters and setters, which means I assume we have a get hook ID and set hook ID. My assumption. And next to that, we have this list. And for the list, we now have three specific functionalities defined in the bottom. Like this clear storage update, add storage update, set storage update. So some questions here. What I think would make sense is that in this, how to call it, like meta language we use to define how the API should look like. From my point of view, it would make sense to not just say list, but to say that is an immutable list, this is a mutable list, or we don't care. Because my assumption is that the inner list that you get with a getter should be immutable. So you should not be allowed, independent of the language, to get the storage updates from the outside of the transaction and just add something to it. For that, we have here the add method and we have the set method. Is that correct?
I think it depends on the language
Yeah, that
because
is,
for Java, you can do that, but I'm not quite sure, for example, in Python or JS, if
yeah,
that's
yeah.
even applicable.
So that is, I agree on that, and that is why I'm just thinking to make the SDKs, be even more near to each other. Maybe immutable is the wrong wording. So, but if we for corrections would have some types, not just a list, but let's assume it would work and we say mutable and immutable list. And then would have a definition for how the API for that type looks like for Python, looks like for Go, looks like for JavaScript, looks like for Java, and so on. Wouldn't that make more sense? Because my assumption is that it's always a little bit different, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. So this is nothing we can do here, right? So this is nothing we can do, especially in that hip. But my assumption is we should make some more specification on list in this meta language to have a better way to implement it than in the given languages so that it all behaves consistent and the same. And the other thing I have is this storage update, the clear storage update with byte. So is that like a we no let me yeah that one here yeah is that one removing content out of the list based on
Mhm.
the so my question is at a version 1 why don't we have a remove storage update instead of that? I mean, for sure, if you don't have that method, somebody needs to get the list, iterate over it, and call remove to it. But by having that list, so my question would now, if we have two storage updates that both have the same key in a worst case, what would happen then, you know?
Yeah, kind of see the point. Let me double check how I've done it. Let's see. Clear. Here. Maybe it's stashed. Yeah. Clear. Okay. Yeah. Because there is a possible functionality that the user wants to clear that storage. But it doesn't make sense to have here to have a byte array, but here to have some type.
Yeah, that is exactly that is my point, right? I mean, it could make sense that we see very soon that people want to have that method. But my suggestion is to not provide that from day one.
Maybe I think that what I can do is to have that method in the lambda. Actually, yeah, you can, as a user, you can always just create a storage update that has some key and the value is empty byte array, so that would remove it. But but do you know how I know that? Because I've debugged it in the services code, and the end user probably won't be able to do that.
But with getting all and setting all, I could do any delete, right? So
Yes.
I assume having like set the list and get the list would be enough for the beginning to do whatever I want to do.
So you want to be like you can always modify the list itself, right? You can create
Create a copy in the worst case or whatever, you know. I'm not saying that this is the best thing. I'm saying before adding methods like this, where we do not know for 100% what people will do, maybe be defensive and only provide the common operators that we have for list, like, oh, set a new list, add one thing and remove one thing and maybe clear the list. Those super common things. And everything else we can add afterwards.
yeah, I can kind of agree. But also, what would be the downside to just have a clear method in the lambda storage update, maybe that because if you want to clear, if I have lambda storage update that is a lambda storage slot, I
Yeah.
would to create that list and set explicitly the key to something and the value to empty byte array. But if I have a clear method on that one, this would do it because you can set that to no, maybe. Depends on how we've implemented it. Depends on what the implementation in services says. Maybe the user doesn't know if I want to remove that key value pair, like what do I do? Do I set this value to no? Do I set it to empty byte array? What do I do? Yeah.
I misunderstood the functionality. So the functionality do not remove something to the list, but add a new one with a null value, or what does it do?
Yeah, exactly. That's
Okay. Can you go down? But I mean, you could do that by doing add storage update manually, right?
yeah, you can do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Then I would definitely remove it because I mean, I'm not deep into it, but I already misunderstood it now. So maybe first of all we remove it, just work with the add and see how people use it, and then we can add methods like that in a later iteration.
Okay. I'll talk with the team about that as well. Another possibility would be to have it on the storage update type itself.
Yeah, then we could have a clear kind of, but I don't know. I mean, from my point of view, a storage update should be immutable because it's such small with just two values. You can like just create it if you need a new one. I don't know if I would allow there to change the value at all.
Yeah, okay. We'll talk about it and probably at least change it, if not remove it.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it makes sense to have these all work with the Lambda storage update class and not some random other type.
Yeah. And another thing is, can you stop this one here? Sorry for painting on it, but that is easier to show. So totally makes sense. We have an account create transaction, and now we want to add a hook to that account. So we call add hook with the hook details, and if we execute the transaction, that one will be added. The second method adds a hook to, but here we call it like set hooks, which again, maybe we do it like add hooks and then have a list. Or no, I get it. It's the forget what I said. No, forget what I said. That's fine.
Yeah, this is a common pattern that we followed.
Yeah.
We have a list. The single add method is just add, and the whole list method is set.
Yeah.
With this, how
I
it
think,
has been done.
yeah, now I know what I looked at. This one is it here. So here we have delete, and then we have add set. That is a little bit misleading, you know?
Okay. Yeah, but how do I say set delete hooks? It kind of doesn't sound right.
I know, but I assume from a syntax level it would be set delete hooks, right?
Yeah, maybe here it does make sense to have add because we have add and delete or remove.
Or you
But
do like add hook to create, set hook to create, add hook to delete, set hooks to delete.
so add hook to delete, set hooks, add hook to create, set hooks to create,
Yeah, exactly.
add
Yeah,
hook to delete, and
yeah,
set hooks to delete. Yeah,
yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
That would make more sense. Yeah,
Let me just do that. Hook to create. Like that, right?
yeah,
Add. Get hooks to create, get hooks to delete, and yeah, that makes sense with the getters as well.
yeah.
Same as create.
It's for contract updates the same, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So these are the APIs for the accounts and contracts. Then we have the transfer transaction. We have an hbar transfer method, which currently we have at hbar transfer method that that only consumes the account ID amount,
Yeah.
but now we have at hbar transfer with hook. Actually, here, if the language supports it, for example, Java, JS, and so on, we can remove that with hook and just have overload.
Yeah.
But for example, in Go, that's not possible, and we need to create
Yeah.
another function. But for most of the languages, it probably would be just add transfer with hook, and then have two additional parameters which are the hook co, which is that one with the hook ID and the co data and the gas limit, and we have the hook type, which is either pre-hook or pre-post hook. And this under the hood would call the already existing at hbar transfer, or actually the already existing at hbar transfer would call that function, which has these two additional parameters, and we can reuse the logic.
Yeah.
And for NFTs, actually, let me go first for the token transfer because it's similar to hbar. We have a token transfer with hook. We have the token ID, the account ID, amount, and again hook co and the hook type, which is again pre or pre-post hook. And for the NFTs, it's a little bit more complicated because here we have specified the sender and the receiver account IDs. And also we have the sender hook type and the receiver hook type as well. So we can have one NFT transfer that executes both sender hook and receiver hook. And this can be done via these types.
Yeah.
For example, we can have sender with pre-hook sender and receiver with pre-post hook receiver or something like that. Um,
What I'm missing here is the information about the types. I mean, for those three, that is clear. We don't need to do it because that is all. But hook call, we don't. Is it an int? Is it a? I mean, you know what I mean? It's
yeah, I see.
it would be very helpful. And the type for sure is the enum, but I think that would be quite helpful. But again, this is about how those code metadata documents are created. This is not about um, this HIP in particular. I'm just thinking if those three should be webbed because this is now really a long method, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky because uh, if we only use types, this is an NFT ID, this is account ID, this is account ID, this is hook co, and this is hook type and this hook type. But we also need to differentiate this account ID from this account ID and this hook type from this hook type. So in some instances, for example, here, I don't need to specify the variable name because it's only one. But if I have three hook creation details, maybe that's a little bit different. And yeah, in this instance, it depends if this is the sender or this is the receiver, or is this the sender or is this the receiver. So maybe in this instance, would be better to have it the type and the variable name or something like that. I'm not quite sure. So maybe this account ID, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a different method. Yeah.
here,
I was like, oh,
yeah.
that is different. Yeah.
Here, this is an actual account ID because uh, in if you use that method, you don't care if this is the sender or the receiver because the receiver will have a positive amount and the sender
Yeah.
will have negative amount. But
Yeah.
here you care if this is the receiver or this is the sender. So here you will have account ID, the sender account ID or something like that. And
Yeah.
you will have the receiver,
Yeah.
and here the rest of the stuff. But here you don't need to do that. And it's kind of tricky, I guess.
Sure. But I was thinking more if after the receiver you do something like just have an intermediate object, which is, I don't know, a stupid name would be like NFT transfer hook information. So that you do not have like 6 parameters, but only have 4.
Oh, so you suggest to create another like parameter object?
Yeah, but receiver should be in it.
The
Like,
receiver,
wait
or
a
you
sec.
let me go back.
Yeah,
So you
like,
mean to have
so
uh,
we move
these
those,
three?
and that is those three should be in one object. That is just why I'm thinking to not have this, super, because who knows what comes next. So
Yeah,
maybe,
that's fair.
yeah. And I'm not saying, I mean, having this method is fine. Yeah, especially if you say in Java, we want to have like add NFT transfer and not have this one. So we have add NFT transfer, and now we add these three parameters. Let's assume the next functionality adds two more, which means we have like add NFT transfer that is growing, growing, growing. And if we say like, oh, a new functionality comes, and we wrap everything for that functionality in one attribute, then the function still grows, but it grows only by one attribute.
Yeah, I see the point, yeah. Hmm. But do you think that's worth it to do in the other functions?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure because I never looked that deep into those parts, but and on the other hand, I don't know. I mean, what could come too, but maybe 2 years ago nobody thought about, oh, it could be like that we call hooks when doing a transfer. Who knows what else we could do when doing an HBAR transfer. So packing it somehow could make sense. Um, on the other hand, I think at the end we want to have something like add hbar transfer and then give in an object that we currently do not have, which is named hbar transfer, and that just has everything, and some of it could be null. Um, and the more parameters we get, we need to move more and more to an approach like that. But again, this is not part of this hip. So yeah, maybe let's keep it like that. Maybe that is something that need to be discussed outside of this hip, how to handle those methods getting longer and longer.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely.
Because we also have another, um, I believe we also have another transfer function that is with decimals or with some other stuff. And yeah, maybe we need a unified type that
Yeah, yeah,
contains every different transfer like option.
yeah.
And the rest is uh, just integration tests that are not quite yet finished. Uh, yeah, I think up until contract update, so these 28 tests are pretty much set in stone, but the rest of these are still not yet finished. There will probably be more, but this hasn't been, the transfer transaction still hasn't been implemented uh, like properly. And for the Lambda store transaction, I have some pending changes here in my branch that I will
Mm.
add. But I'm having some problems with one of the edge cases here. So when I figure out what's causing that, I'll push some updates in this section. But yeah, the tests maybe are not that important in that at that point. Uh, we went through the APIs, so that's great.
I have one question. You have the sampled section, right? I like that a lot because that really helped me, the example section to understand how to use it. One question I have here, or again, I would say this is not that especially for this hit, but in step one, where you create the key value pair, right? Both sure uint 8, but in a native language, we will for things like that support like, I don't know what uint 8, if it would be an int or a long. So we would support the native types for that, and you don't need to write it like this, correct?
This here is JavaScript, actually.
Yeah, but in JavaScript, when you do like set value, the uint 8 array.
Okay.
So let me have a look at the because in the description above, you just say, okay, it's of type bytes.
Yeah, it's actually a byte array.
It's
Uh,
it's a native JavaScript byte array, or is it something specific? Okay, that is my question. Is it something specific, or is it like whatever the language defines as a byte array?
Yeah, it's whatever the language defines as byte array. I will rename these from bytes to byte array. Like where is it? I've put up a comment to do that. Yeah, I'll change the bytes to byte array. And yeah, for example, in JS, that's the way to do it. In other
Okay, yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, good. Thank you. Cool. Thanks for answering all my questions. Ivan, that was great. I learned a lot about how those design docs work.
No, thanks for all your comments, Hendrik. That was amazing, and I think that's what we want to do more of in these community calls is just get broader feedback on the design docs, because especially since, like let's say the Python contributors they're gonna have to actually implement this, so we need to answer everyone's questions.
Yep. Cool. Okay, so we need the whole hour on that one. So no other topics.
I would need to drop. We didn't have time to discuss the other topic,
No
but
problem.
if you want, we can chat about it or have a separate meeting.
Yeah, I plan to send out to all the maintainers and commit us some news the next days anyway. So yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Very much for your input.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
See you
Bye.
all.
Have a nice day.
Bye.